what we've done this year, and Tom and I just had a discussion, I think for the last 6 years we've been doing this. We thought it was important to report back to you as to what's going on, so you can know who was involved, but also we want you guys to know that anything that we do would not be capable without your support. All right, you guys are just as much of the process as the people that are actually taking the trip to Ohio. All right, we're going to have several of our guys come up and talk to you. Obviously, I'm going to speak to you. Tom will be up here in a minute. Doug, who went with us for the first time this year, is going to come up and share a little bit of his experience. Gary, who's one of our veterans, we've got him hooked in, and he's gone with us a couple years. And then Jason Nelson joined us this year. He's going to come up and say something. And then David, one of our teens, is going to kind of finish us off today. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. While some of the other guys are speaking, there will be a little bit of a slide presentation rolling behind them so you guys can get to see some of the images and see a little bit about what's happened there, not only hear about it, but see what's going on. Work camp, quite honestly, is one of my favorite weeks of the year, okay? I've had a lot of people, I'm a teacher, and I've had a lot of people say, I don't know how you do that. Working with kids every day, that must be so tough, and I'm going to tell you right now it's not. All right, this week is just awesome. I get to see, everybody that's there gets to see these kids and these adults at their absolute best. Working as hard as I've seen people work, sharing the love of Christ doing it. We've had a lot of homeowners come up to us and say, why are you guys doing this? And, that opens the door for us to tell them why we're doing it. It's all about Christ. Christ has shown His love to us, and we now have the privilege of sharing that love with you. All right? And so, it's a perfect opportunity for us to go out and, not all of us are skilled like Micah in getting up and speaking to people. I know I'm a teacher, but that's not really one of my gifts. When it comes to confidence and talking to somebody, honestly, I freeze up a little bit. But I'll work hard for you. And I tell you what, we've got a group of kids out here that just absolutely work hard. And I'm really, really proud of that out of our guys. You really see the best coming out. I can't tell you how many homeowners that we've had come up to us, or neighbors, or just people driving down the street and say, you know what, you turn on the news, you read the newspaper, you look at social media, and all you hear about kids today are the negatives. And they say, watching these guys and what they're doing really restores my faith in people, but it's really not people, it's really God. All right, and them reflecting God's love. I'm going to start today by reading a scripture. Tom's got a little lesson for us, and we're going to read about the Good Samaritan here, which I think is a perfect lesson when it comes to work camp. We're really, we're called to be servants, and we're called not to be thinking about ourselves, but to look and see what we can do for others. All right, so we're going to read from Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this, and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where this man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Which of these do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." All right, before we share in a quick time of fellowship with each other, as is our tradition every Sunday, what I want to do is have all of our work campers from this year please stand up. I know you guys hate doing this. Now, stay standing. I know you don't like doing this, but stay standing. Now, anybody that has ever attended work camp in the past, please rise. Come on, Ruth. All right. Now, the last group that I want to stay standing, please. If you've helped support us in our trip to work camp, please stand up. Now, I know not everybody's standing right now, but as we get into our quick couple minutes of fellowship, seek out some of these work campers and ask them about their experience, because every single one of them has a story to share. All right, let's go.
Good morning, everybody. Trickling back. Good morning, good morning. It's kind of fun to see. She's having troubles this morning, huh?
I think somebody in the family's in the hospital. I think I saw them.
Oh, okay. Let's get this show rolling. Oh, it already is rolling. That's my house right there. Thank you, Mike, for reading the Good Samaritan for us. I'm going to talk about that in just a second here. I had a nice discussion with my brother around the breakfast table in Oklahoma yesterday. I took Molly back to college, but we were talking about the service today and talking about the parable of the Good Samaritan. I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts about the concept of the parable of the Good Samaritan with you. Just think about it for a minute. An expert of the law comes to Jesus, and Jesus, he tests Jesus. He says, what's the Bible all about? What is the point that God's trying to make here? And Jesus, well, as Jesus usually does, he answers a question with a question. He says, well, what do you think? And the man says, love God, love others. That's the summary. And Jesus says, you got it. You're right. Love God and love one another. And the guy goes further to justify himself. He says, who's my neighbor? Right? And then you hear the parable that Jesus says of the Good Samaritan. And it irritated everybody that was listening, because They hate Samaritans. They can't even, you'll even see later on in the story, when Jesus asks them another question, he says, who was the neighbor in this picture? And he says, the one who served. He didn't even say Samaritan. They didn't pronounce the name. But I want you to think about what service means, what worship means for just a minute. Our church family's theme, our motto is loving one another's one step closer to Christ. The theme for the Central Ohio Work Camp is taking worship to the streets. And I submit to you that if you look at the story of the parable of the Good Samaritan, that he shows who passed by the injured man. First a priest, then a Levite. Both of those guys were more than likely heading to an assembly. They were heading to worship. And Jesus says, what was more important? I don't want to trash us for being here today, because I think the main part of our corporate worship, getting together here, two things. One, I think the goal that Rob helped us with this morning is remember Jesus. Don't forget me. And then the other goal I think we see of coming together today is to encourage one another. And I'm hoping today is going to be a big encouragement to you as it is to me. But Jesus redefined their concept of worship. He said, worship is not going to an assembly. Worship is meeting people's needs and encouraging one another. He basically condemned the priest and the Levite, who were worshipers of God, because they failed to worship when it really counted. So Jesus says, what is more important? That's just a little thought I have for you. I'm going to let Doug come up here and talk to us, and then we'll have Gary and Jason. And I'll be back.
Yeah, Mike mentioned this was my first year, and I have to admit I was really nervous to go. Never painted houses before, had no experience. I was nervous about kids and ladders and high places and utility lines and all kinds of things. And I was really fortunate. Really, I got put with a dream team, really, of experienced high school kids who knew what they were doing, hardworking and serving, and they told me what to do. And so it was a great experience for me. I found it to be very therapeutic. I could forget about my job, forget about my worries, and just be outdoors and enjoy the day and get just kind of lost in painting houses for a while. And so it was really a blessing to me. I was really impressed with the kids. They all chose to be there. They all chose to serve. They all chose to be together and work together and listen to the adults and not fight with us. And just really good kids. I got to work with Logan Maynard, a great kid. Got to work with Jason Edwards, who is Kim and Brett McNeil's nephew, and used to be a member here before they moved. Good kids. So as Mike mentioned, the opportunity to be around young people who love God and are serving, it does give you hope in the next generation. And I got to experience that. And I would encourage you to experience that, to see it, to be part of it. God is so wise in His design of us. And He created us to need each other. And He created us to serve. And He put it in our psychology that we're actually mentally healthier and our attitudes are better when we can forget about ourselves and think about someone else, and that we can serve and bless and benefit somebody else. God gave us that as a reward here on the earth. So I want to thank all of our kids for choosing to be part of that. And I want to thank Tom and Mike for leading that, and all the other adults, and Bonnie and Peggy and and all kinds of names I can't mention that are involved in that. So thank you very much.
Work camp doesn't sound too fun, does it? Hard days, long hours, up and down ladders. But how can something so strenuous be so fulfilling? You know, I saw something recently here on Facebook, and maybe one of you guys posted it, but it said that the Lord didn't give us another day, didn't give you another day because you needed more time, but He gave you another day because someone else needs your time. And isn't that really kind of what our mission is as Christians? Like Tom just said, you know, hitting the streets, and it's cool to be in here, but applying it and being out there and serving others is so rewarding and just so uplifting. The impact that we make when we're doing that and we're serving others, I think, you know, I know myself, I feel like I need that sometimes even more than who I'm helping or who we're serving, making that connection. And we're there doing it for Christ. And those connections go so deep. The impact that we have when we're serving others for the Lord. You know, to see these people in awe at our kids and us just volunteering a whole week of our time to be there, to watch the expressions of joy, to see people break down in tears just because what we've done, and you know, we've worked a whole week for them to improve their home. It's very, very rewarding. And I've seen the impact even in my own kids. Like I've said before, you know, the Alan and Amanda, in the very beginning, I signed them up, and of course they didn't even know it. And Alan comes in here and flops down and says, "Well, I hear you signed us up for work camp." You know, and I said, "Well, yeah, I was trying to figure out how I was going to tell you. I want you to do it one time. And then if you don't like it after that, then I'm not going to force you to do it. But I'd like you to do it one time and experience it." And then after that, the kids, I didn't have to even bring it up. They were wanting to go. And this is a mission that, like I said, it's work, it's long hours, it's labor intensive, but yet it's a mission that's growing. It's growing. I mean, why is it growing? And we're working so hard because of the impact that we're making, not only on the individuals that we're serving, but the impact it's making on us too, drawing us closer. I think, I got to work with Olga this year, who she had never been before, and she was apprehensive about going because, like Doug just said, these are some things that, she had never done and maybe some others had never done. But what's cool is just being willing to have that spirit just to go and do it. And then we learn everybody can do something. Everybody can scrape. It doesn't take long. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it, basically. So, but just having that spirit to go, and it's brought us closer. Just, that time spent together to where you really get to know somebody on a more personal level and make that connection other than just being here and just an occasional hello or how are you doing. Or my brother Jason over there that I roomed with, got to know him more. So, it just impacts, it impacts us on all kinds of different levels. Very rewarding. And like Tom said, and even the example of the Samaritan, that is what we're here for. That is what we are called to do. We're called to go out and serve others. So, and there's many different facets, just like we spoke about earlier. You don't have to necessarily, but supporting it. So, it's a beautiful time. It's a mission that's growing. I love doing it. I take vacation time to go do it because like Mike said, you come away feeling charged, like recharged, So it's just great to be able to take a whole week and dedicate to the Lord. And I know we do it every day, and we should be doing it every day. And we have a good time doing it. That was part of my crew right there. So, and as adults, we're teaching these younger kids too, by not only by leading by example. And there are times, like Olga, I'm sure, would share with you, that it can be a little frustrating sometimes. But when you put it in perspective that these kids have volunteered their time too, and so we have to teach them and guide them, and sometimes keep them very well focused. So, but they're learning too, and so it's good. It's good, the impact. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, and I hope to see some of you on a crew in the near future.
So this year was also my first year to go to work camp, and I was asked if I wanted to take a group of teenage kids into a not so nice part of Columbus, Ohio, paint houses for a week, and use my vacation time to do so. And not a great way to sell it, but I'll tell you what, I'll do it again next year, and the year after, and the year after. I talked to Micah sometime before that about the difference between worshiping God and serving God. This was service to God, and to worship God you have to serve. And when I always talk about doing the Lord's work, this was it. I took a lot away from painting the houses and having doing all that and serving our homeowner, which was a lovely lady, and the neighborhood we were in, the neighbors coming out and talking to us and talking to the kids and getting to know us. But I looked forward most to, if you've not spent 4 hours locked in a car with David, you're missing out. I promise you, you're missing out. That was so much fun. Getting to know Tom and Bonnie and Mike and Peggy and Micah and Disney and Gary and Olga more, and just getting to know everybody more on a more intimate level, on a more personal level than what we do here for 2 hours on a Sunday morning or an hour on a Wednesday evening was the most amazing thing. I learned that my son will not die if he does physical labor. I can't get him to clean his room. He'll go paint houses for a week. The Lord works in mysterious ways, I guess. But the fellowship with these kids, you not only connect with kids from your own congregation, but 2 kids from our crew stood out to me. One was a young lady from Cincinnati that had come up with the congregation down there, and I've always learned as a salesman, if I can get you to open up, I own you. I've got you. You're going to buy my product. You're going to pay my price, and we're going to get along great. So I used that tactic with her and got her to talk and got her to open up, and when she did, the floodgates opened, and we talked about everything under the sun. I got to learn about her playing in the orchestra and acting in the plays and her boyfriends and her prom and her job and making pizzas. And then there was a young man on our crew, Ryan, and Ryan's a ball player. I raised ball players. I was a ball player. I coached ball players. So, it was just natural that we clicked. And when it come time to, say our goodbyes on Friday, I told Ryan, I said, hey, text me, let me know how baseball season goes. And I thought, at the end of the season, he'd shoot me a text, say, hey, we did great. We won 10 games, lost 3, won a tournament. Every game. Every game after every game, he was texting me, letting me know how he was doing, how things went, how they won, how they lost, how he pitched. And it's just a bond that I never expected to make. I'm going to go hang out with kids that I've never met and a few that I have. We did have Bree on our crew and Kaylee was on our crew, and they did a fantastic job. But you go and you look at these kids in the evening time, and you realize they are just kids. They're cutting up, they're having fun, they're dancing, laughing, and joking. By the way, Alan plays a mean air guitar if anybody ever gets a chance to see that. It's fantastic. But then you see these kids at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we don't get to bed till midnight. And they're up at 6 o'clock in the morning, over there for breakfast, and on the road and ready to go, and they work hard all day. And it's an amazing group of kids that we've got here. It's an amazing program. I was a little apprehensive about giving up a week's vacation time to go down there and do that, but I'll give it up again next year. I'm excited and I can't wait to go, and it's been a blast. And as they say, we saved the best for last, so now we're going to let David tell you about his experience.
You got me for another minute or two before I send David here to kind of give us more of an invitation. But thank you, guys, for sharing your thoughts with us today, because that, to me, that means a lot more. Hearing another perspective, hearing what I feel every year when I go. You know, it took once. And I'm sold on it too. Like Mike said, it's his favorite time of the year to go bust our guts and wear out our muscles and just physically fatigue ourselves for a spiritual boost that is hard to beat. So Romans chapter 12 says this: "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." These guys have come up here and done just that. They've urged you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. There's lots of other ways to do it, and I see you guys doing that in lots of other ways. This is just one example. I think it's a good example of what God's trying to say here, and what Jesus was trying to say in the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's your actions speaking for you. It's taking worship as a part of your life, not just a couple days on a Sunday. There's a lot of value in this. There's a lot of value in coming together to remember our all-powerful Savior. But there's more value, I'm going to say it, there's more value in living your life as a life of worship. Presenting your bodies. This is your true and proper worship, to be a living sacrifice. David, it's all yours.
Today we discussed how we've helped people in Ohio by repairing and painting their houses. We did this because of how we love Jesus. Just as we help them in Ohio, we want to offer ourselves to serve you because we love you as Christ loves you. If you have any needs and prayer requests you want to discuss, Micah and the elders will gladly listen during the invitation song or after worship service. If you would like a Bible study, they will also listen. If you'd like to let Christ serve you by washing away your sins, we give you the opportunity to do so by getting baptized today. We offer you these invitations now as we now stand and sing our invitation song.